So again, given that, you know, much more of the trading patterns today are driven by computer algorithms, mathematical models, which of course sometimes can be quite complex. It certainly is very hard to anticipate how these different algorithms and models feed on each other, because not only do you develop a model for what you think the market is going to do, but as others are doing the same thing, your model may actually influence my model, and my model may influence yours. So we get this, infinite feedback loop here of different trading algorithms, controlling each other, or at least influencing each other. So it makes it just very unpredictable, I think, to some extent. And of course, these systems are supposed to have their own brakes built in so that they don't, again, go crazy and sell and buy in large, in mass, in ways that they didn't anticipate. But we have seen, of course, there was a flash crash in New York where we think part of the problem was computers selling. Everybody was selling. You were selling, I was selling, and you knew I was selling, so then you started selling more, and it just escalates. This sort of behavior is something, of course, nobody really wants, because it makes, first of all, it affects heavily the amount of interest in the equities and in the derivatives. So you'll have weird liquidity issues where suddenly there's a lack of demand, which is why prices drop in one day maybe 10% or more, just because there's nobody buying. But in the end, the fundamental value of these things obviously haven't changed in that amount of time. So there's so much of the price setting now that's driven by demand and supply from these different trading systems that are actually buying and selling, that you get more volatility. And to control this behavior, I think it's very important for the exchanges to understand, first of all, what's going on in there. What are the trends right now? And if they need to, they will put brakes in there. They will stop, they will limit the spreads. They will limit where an order can be placed. You can't place it anywhere in the price spectrum. There's a limit to how cheap or how expensive it can be. So the exchanges will have a responsibility to somehow make order out of chaos. And to do that, of course, given that there are thousands or tens of thousands of orders coming in per second, they need tools to quickly detect anomalies and act on them. So again, I think it brings back another point I made before, which is that I think the tool sets, the monitoring that will be required long term is not there yet. And I think there's going to be a lot of innovation in that space, partly based on, again, controlling the inflow of data, preventing it, or just flagging it as this looks problematic, but we won't do anything, but we'll send a note to the trading firm that you guys better watch out. And just keeping track of positions and behavior through network appliances or built-in support in the trading system, where positions and order spreads are supervised or monitored. So there will be more of that, I think, rather than less, even though historically it hasn't been so necessary, because you haven't had this need, because you could sort of read in the newspaper where you think that the market is going to go the next day. But that's harder and harder now, because other things determine the behavior of the market to a much larger extent. So it certainly is, and we have seen that, right? The past few months have been very, very volatile. And I don't think it's going to end here. I think there's going to be more volatility. But the end result is, like, if you look at the net over a 6-month period, it probably is going to be pretty stable. I mean, a lot of the prices will stabilize around where they were 6 months ago. But in the meantime, they've been up and down and left and right. And it's just weird because the companies or the bonds underlying these things are what they are, So I think it's just that. I think the volatility is here to stay, and it's hard on the exchanges to handle.